Yeah, so my name is Tony Haven, independent musician, director, promoter, producer, booking agent from the UK. Though I'm based in the UK, as Luigi just mentioned, I do regularly work in up to 15, sometimes 20 countries per year. And to date, since I wrote my speech, it's 130 countries I've been selling and promoting in. But I double-checked and just to stay up to date, because I haven't checked for a little while. And I've actually sold in over 150 countries worldwide now, which is a dream come true for me. I'd like to talk to you today about approaching your own industry, whatever it might be. In my case, it was the music industry, which is a huge industry to try and get to grips with. It's not just obviously about the music, but also directing and producing as well. When I left school at 16, I had a few relatively useless qualifications, nothing at all to do with music. In fact, I failed music in school, which was the start of a downward spiral of my career choice. But I actually had no real career plan at all when I was anything. Never really had any set aims or desires. My parents always just said, just do what you want to do what makes you happy. And I remember my father sitting me down before my leaving day, and he said, okay, so you've been having fun for 16 years, been experimenting with the world, traveling around, and doing what you want to do. He says, but what do you actually want to do for the next 50 years? And I, with a blank expression on my face, and just kind of shrugged my shoulders, and I don't know, I have no idea. It's safe to say it wasn't the exact response my parents had hoped for from their 16-year-old child who's just about to go out in the world. But after a few days of thinking, I started to see guitar as an option, and music as a whole. I'd only been playing guitar for about a year. I hadn't really performed live. I certainly never taught, I'd never promoted, never done anything to do with the music industry whatsoever. I had no contacts at all. And when I presented this idea to my parents in the hopes that it would ease them off my back a little bit and let me find my own way, my dad said, okay, that's great, but how? And again, blank expression, and I don't know, I didn't really think that far ahead. I thought that was enough, and that was an idea. I remember at this point my father left the room and returned armed with a pen and paper and presented this to me and said, okay, you want to be a musician, that's great. I want you to write me a business plan, 5-year plan, 10-year plan, 20-year plan, 1-month plan, anything, give me something that we can build on. And I think if you present the words business and plan to any 16-year-old, you're going to strike fear into their soul, and I was no exception. I'd never tackled anything like this before. All through my school advice and career meetings and stuff, as soon as I even mentioned music, they sort of just shook their heads and said, that's not an option, that's not on our list of options we can give you. How about pharmaceuticals, something like that? It's just never an option for me, music. It's only when I started writing this plan that I realized that if I was going to convince someone else, i.e. a bank, to invest in me or something, I had to convince myself I could do this first. I had to research my industry that I wanted to go into. And it's only then that I realized I could do this. If you go take your plan into the bank, for example, you don't normally go in and say, okay, here is my business plan. This is my plan A. This is what I want investment in. This is my idea. This is my concept. But here as well is my plan B and my plan C, just in case plan A fails. They would quite simply reply to you and go, okay, but if you don't think plan A is going to fail, if you think plan A is going to fail to start with, then why are we going to invest in it? And I think in my experience since I left school, a lot of my friends and colleagues and people I've grown up with, they focused on plan B as their only option. Plan A is merely a dream, idealistic concept, an unrealistic ambition maybe, and plan B is what they actually focus on and what usually ends up happening. Starting a new business, in my experience is all about learning, improvising, and adapting. Music was my chosen industry and career, but my plan was simply, how do I get this product, market it, and ultimately sell it to an already existing clientele market, or maybe should I create my own market? When I look at it like this, as an overall concept, as an overall plan, that's when I realized I could learn from any business and every business. And this is kind of when I started to discover TED and ideas from all walks of life and all experiences, and drawing from everything to try and build my own industry and get the ball rolling, build my confidence from other people that have gone through the same experiences, but not necessarily just in music. In some of the areas that music was failing, other industries were excelling, and I wanted to learn from the areas that were excelling and apply it to music and try and balance out my own industry that way. I've never been great at learning in the traditional sense, the school methods, as it were, of someone saying, you know, if you do this and this, then this will ultimately happen. If you do this and this, then this will happen. I think that's great if you're playing a video game or something and all the levels are written out in advance, but I don't think life is quite as simple as making the right or wrong choice at any given time, and neither is industry. The way I start each campaign or album or any project I'm taking on is to think of what will happen if. And I found with this technique of planning that I can eliminate something that cripples most people's creative train of thought, especially, is the fear of failure. Someone trying to do the perfect plan to the perfect person at the perfect moment is generally going to become so paralyzed by this fear that they'll fail and fall at the first hurdle. And with this, what will happen if concept of planning, it allows you the ability to try several concepts, several marketing plans, any strategy that you've thought of. And if something doesn't work, you can just go, okay, that didn't exactly go to plan, I'm going to move on to the next thing. And you can move on move on to the next thing in your campaign, and ultimately self-confidence will stay intact. I think once you have the confidence in your own product and own abilities, then you also want to think about who you want to work with and who you want to be involved in your brand. In my chosen career path in music, traditionally everyone would say, okay, you need to work with the best producers, the best promoters, the best booking agents, you need to sign to the biggest label you can. That's the only way you're going to do it. If you can't do that, just don't even bother, you know. I couldn't really see the point in this method. 10 to 15 years' time, when my career is starting to move forward, a lot of the people and the contacts I've built up in these experienced labels and agencies, they're all starting to be retiring. And I'll be left having to rebuild again and start from scratch almost. I'll start to show you now. These are a couple of albums. This is my first album. I'll just show you this one first. This is my first album. And going back to what I was saying about, you know, going to experienced labels and promoters. This was all recorded in a little studio setup I made when I was 16. The last little bit of money that I had left, instead of doing what all my mates were doing and paying for driving lessons. And, you know, I could afford driving like 10 or 11 driving lessons, but not a car. So I thought, I'm not going to invest in that. So I decided to take this old computer that I've had lying around with, I don't even know what I had on it, Windows XP, you know, if that still exists. And I bought some music software through college that I managed to get a really good discount on. I just scraped all my money and got some really good software. And a cheap mic off eBay, and, you know, just did all the usual stuff, try and build up a little collection of things that I could make my own album. And this was all, this is a few years down the line. This is a new album, and the software's been upgraded since then as my finances have improved slightly from those days, thankfully. And this is now one of the albums that is on sale in worldwide. And it's all started basically in my bedroom. And as I was saying about working with people who are in a similar position to me, starting out in the industry, every photo in this album was by a young photographer in my local area, who at this point had no real portfolio. He was still in university. No one was really giving him a chance. He was putting himself out there just like I was in a way. He was going to local gigs, which is where I met him, and he said, "Hey man, can I take some photos of your gigs and maybe give you the disc at the end? And if you like them, can you maybe throw me a tenner, something to help me out to get to the petrol to the next gig?" And I saw a lot of potential in the way he was working. And now he's graduated, very accomplished, self-employed photographer, and one who I'll be working with for a long time to come. And this is a latest CD, again, produced, recorded, mixed by myself in my own studio. But this way I did it a little bit different. I wanted to do actual artwork, not just photos this time. And the artwork on this album, like all of the artwork shown, is by a tattoo artist I met on tour a couple of years back, and we've always wanted to do something together. And I had this concept for this album that I wanted to do actual canvases and then have the photos of the canvases to get a bit more of a rawer feel to it. And I presented this idea to her, and she just embraced it straight away and said, that's great. Why did you think of me? And I was like, well, she was the same age as me. She was just left university, just started her own tattoo shop, and had a very creative mind, creative vision. And even though this wasn't her area of expertise in the way of artwork, paint to canvas, she embraced it and came up with the results that, again, are selling around the world. And if I ever need any more artwork done, it'll be by her. And I keep on building with this kind of mentality. I've recently started working with a young filmographer for all future videos I'll be doing as well. Again, he's the same age as me and starting out in the industry, trying to earn ends meet. I've also started working with a manga artist for my next album, and a cinema 4D graphic designer who's just about to graduate from university in London. We grew up together, and until last year I didn't actually know what he was studying in uni. It's only when he randomly on Facebook sent me a message saying, "Hey man, this is my final major project for my uni course." I was like, okay, I'll check it out, and it was incredible what you can do with cinema 4D with a bit of guidance and his creative vision. And we've decided to work on projects in the future, and they're all the same age as me or younger, and all in the same position as me, and I feel we have a strong connection. And in 10 to 15 years' time, their careers will be moving forward, as hopefully mine will be as well. Another thing we all share in common, which is why I like working with these guys, is the way we learn and the way we approach a challenge. I've met a lot of people as I've been traveling around, and especially when you play guitar in the streets or things like I do, you get people come up to go, "I'd love to learn to do that, I'd love to learn that." And people say, "I'd love to learn to speak another language, I'd love to learn to paint." It can be anything. But I found when I was 16, 17, when I was looking around for guitar lessons, you get the usual things, 10 easy steps to learn how to paint, learn a language by the weekend, or my favorite, which popped up in my spam box all the time, was learn guitar in 24 hours. I'd never really saw the point in learning something in 24 hours, an art form that's been around for thousands of years. But people do seem to want to learn things maybe as fast as possible, but for me, that kind of takes all the fun out of it. I enjoy the process of learning, and if you find a process of learning that you enjoy, then that journey becomes the best bit about getting to the end result. And learning a language, when do you ever stop learning a language? When do you ever stop learning how to play guitar? There is no end result, and there's no point getting there as fast as possible. You have to enjoy the process of building on it, step by step. This brings me to another point of promoting. When I started in this trade, in this industry, It was a bit different promoting-wise. MySpace has started, and bands like Arctic Monkeys were utilising it to great effect to get into the charts and promote their gigs. Facebook and Twitter had yet to exist, which are now, crucial in any marketing campaign nowadays, and ones that I do use as well. But something I still use to this day is, and something I believe in, is the power of street promoting people, meeting people. If your only marketing strategy is social networks, then you're going to start falling behind the people who are trying a little bit of something different every single day. And that's what I believe in, is you have to broaden your horizons, and there's still ways of doing things to the people and actually finding what people actually want at any given time. I think it's very important. So I'd like to summarize with a couple of things I take around with me from my day-to-day. Firstly is to have no plan B. If you keep your target in sight, that's important. You have to keep your end result in sight, but you have to allow the process to move freely and stay focused on one plan. Also, never have too many contacts. It's all great having 1 million likes on Facebook. If you don't have any useful or reliable contacts, then where really are you? Industry is built around people, whether it be customers or colleagues, and I think it's important to interact with those people face-to-face as well. And lastly, when I left school, as I said, music wasn't an option. It was a dream, a very ambitious dream, considering I grew up in a place that was, the nearest shop was a mile away. I grew up in the middle of nowhere, and to be a musician was unheard of. But I found that with a bit of focused hard work and it's a little bit of self-belief that you can build on, you can take something that isn't even a possibility and make it into a reality. And I'd like to thank you very much for listening, and thank you to TED for having me. Thank you very much.